Okay, I'm further along. I screwed the top in. Now I'm working on that middle rail section that's between the drawer and our raised panel door. And right here, I cut this earlier, the block that we need to set that spacing. When you read the plans, it says it's 3 7/8. So I went over to the table saw, I grabbed a piece of scrap, measured off 3 7/8 and cut that off. And then that's our stop block for where that's supposed to be. So the next thing we want to do is set that stop under just to make sure that we've got the proper spacing. Here's where I'm using one of those Irwin clamps. I talked about using that earlier. This is the way I generally do this, is I'll take that assembly clamp, slide it in place, and I'm just going to put enough pressure to close the joint here that I can see that that crack has disappeared. And at that point, we're ready to put the screws in. Again, like before, you want to take and double check, making sure that as we set that process to move, we want to make sure we're flush on the top and flush underneath. And again, I'm just getting in here, feeling it a little bit with my fingers, make sure that it is flush top and bottom. And if we're good to go, then we can go ahead and tighten that up. I kind of set this up so you can see it, but really the way that I normally do this is I'll take and flatten this down and apply the pressure right on that joint. But the process is the same. So again, we're trying to make sure that we've got this nice and flush on the bottom here. Tighten that up just to get enough pressure on there. Again, these are designed to push about 150 pounds of pressure on there. Looks like we're ready to go or flush on the top. I just checked to make sure we're flush on the bottom. And again, one of the advantages of this process is I'm not moving a clamp out of the way to do the other side. It's clamped continuously while I'm doing this. And both sides get screwed in fairly quickly. And again, we've got one side of the face frame all done. Now to go to the other side. And again, we're looking at what's the bad side, so to speak. That's going to be what's up. I've got a small knot right here. I'm going to arrange that just so that's up in the same area as the drawer, and it really won't be seen at all. I'm going to go ahead and use these Irwin assembly clamps. And again, I'm going to go and tighten this down. And again, the individual pieces, we want to check as we're setting this process together that these are flush on the end and flush on the faces. Again, if they're a little bit off, we can go ahead and go through the sanding process and sand that. And with a little extra care here right away, it does a better job. The other thing you're probably noticing is when I use these big frame clamps for assembly, I'm going to go ahead and slide these screws in right away. So I got 4 screws. And that way the angle set, I can feel that it's in that pilot hole. And it just makes putting this assembly together a little bit quicker. So with this portion, again, I'm using these assembly clamps, quick grips, whatever you like to call them. They're great for assemblies. And again, now I can get into that screw area and not be too worried about things shifting and moving around, because that clamp is going to hold that in place while I'm getting this set. And again, I'm just trying to make sure I'm flush across the front there. And flush on the other end as well. Once it's lined up and it's perfect, we just give it a little more of a squeeze to make sure it's in the right spot. And then I can go ahead and then do the process of putting the screws in. So I'm going to first do the top edge here. So I'm flush there. And again, I'm just using the feel of my fingers to see if it's flush in the right spot. I have my spacer block here already set up. I just slided it over for that drawer opening. And I'm going to do this next rail. And again, you'll see that joint will close up when that tightens up, and you'll hear it spin. What has happened is the head has now grabbed the top of the rail, and it's pulling that rail tight to the stile. And that's something that you want to see in that process. And you can, again, you can hear You can hear the screw bottom up, but then you can hear the ratcheting. You can hear that, and that's what you should be listening for when you do the assemblies, to hear that ratcheting sound. You know to stop pushing, because it's slipping now inside that driver, because we don't want to over torque these screws. So this is the back side that we're not going to see. Here you can see all the pocket holes there. It's been fully assembled, and again, as we do the assembly, we're looking to try and keep this as flush as possible and making sure that these joints tighten up so it's nice and tight and you don't see little gaps in there. So that's how you build the face frame assembly for our small cabinet that we build here in class.